Let's dive right into today's explainer. We're breaking down a story that is honestly as incredible as it is heartbreaking. It's a cinematic timeline of loyalty, raw instinct, and ultimate sacrifice. I want you to step right into this hushed, intense moment that literally changed two lives forever.
So picture this, a quiet, peaceful neighborhood in Colorado. It's a Friday night, the streets are completely empty, and the only sound you can hear is the cold wind blowing between the houses. Then, at exactly 11:43 p.m., that deep midnight silence is violently shattered by a single, deafening gunshot.
You can imagine, panic instantly sets in. Neighbors immediately rush out of their homes into the freezing night. Based on the terrifying sound of the blast, they are fully expecting to find a man lying wounded, or worse, out in the street. But instead, they find a German shepherd. He's covered in blood, trembling in the cold, his breathing visibly slowing down. But the craziest part is, he isn't retreating. He is standing firm, positioning himself directly in front of his owner, and absolutely refusing to move away. Even after taking a bullet, his only instinct is to protect the man he loves.
Now, when police finally arrived and pulled the home security camera footage, they literally had to replay the tape 3 separate times. It wasn't the violence of the gunshot that shocked them. It was the unbelievable realization that the dog didn't just accidentally get caught in the crossfire. Max made a deliberate sacrifice. The footage reveals that just 1 single second before the trigger was pulled, Max looked directly at the attacker and then intentionally threw his body perfectly into the bullet's path. He didn't hesitate, he didn't run, he completely chose to take the bullet himself.
Which brings us to the pivotal question we really have to explore today. Why? Why did Max take the bullet? To truly understand that split-second decision, we gotta rewind. We have to look at the powerful emotional backstory that bound this man and this dog together in the first place. Section 1. A Quiet Life Together. Daniel and Max.
You see, the owner, Daniel Carter, had spent the last 2 years living in deep, painful isolation. He had tragically lost his wife in an accident, and his world had just shrunk down to a very quiet, very lonely existence. The only thing that managed to pierce through that heavy grief, the absolute sole source of peace in his life, was a rescued German shepherd named Max. Max wasn't just a pet, he was a lifeline who brought light back into a very dark home. It's just a profound reminder of how rescue animals often end up rescuing their owners right back, sensing grief in ways we humans often miss.
And because of that bond, Max was deeply tuned in to Daniel's emotional state, and he developed these incredibly specific protective habits. Every single morning, he'd wait patiently by the front door like a guard on duty. Every single night before they went to sleep, Max would systematically check every single room in the house. And if anyone ever walked just a little too close to Daniel, Max would quietly, calmly step right between them. But here's the thing, it was never about aggression, it was pure protection. He was constantly sensing the world on Daniel's behalf. Section 2. Warning Signs of Danger. An Unseen Threat. Okay, so this quiet life rapidly escalates into a pattern of absolute dread. It starts on a Friday evening. Daniel comes home late, parks his truck, and Max completely refuses to get out. Instead, he just stands there, his body completely still, ears straight up, staring into the dark void behind the garage. Daniel looks, but sees nothing but the cold wind. But over the next few days, the timeline accelerates. Daniel finds his mailbox inexplicably opened. He spots fresh footprints walking through his backyard. And then, almost every evening, this mysterious black SUV starts stopping near the house. And through all of this, Max maintains a silent vigil at the front window, never barking, just watching. And honestly, this part just breaks your heart a little, because of the devastating dramatic irony of how Daniel reacted to all of this. Daniel, who was probably just trying to hold on to the fragile piece he'd finally found, would just laugh it off. He'd tell his dog, "Buddy, nobody's trying to hurt me." He was actively dismissing the very real danger right as the unseen stalking was reaching its absolute peak.
Eventually, though, the tension gets high enough that Daniel does call the police about the SUV and those footprints. The police do a quick search of the neighborhood, find absolutely nothing, and casually conclude, it was probably nothing. And Daniel desperately wanted to believe them. But Max remained entirely unconvinced. While the police brushed the threat off, Max stayed glued to that front window, watching silently in the dark. He knew a threat was out there.
Section 3. The Night Everything Changed. A Shadow in the Dark.
All right, fast forward. It's nearly midnight. Daniel switches off the living room lights to head to bed. But Max suddenly stands up, locking his eyes onto the back door, and lets out this deep, serious growl. Daniel grabs a flashlight, slowly opens the back door, and peers into what looks like an empty backyard. But then, a shadow moves behind the fence. A masked man steps forward out of the darkness and instantly raises a handgun. In a fraction of a second, Daniel is completely frozen, staring directly down the barrel of a gun pointed right at his chest.
Bang! The gunshot literally rips through the night. But Daniel isn't hit. In that microsecond before the trigger was fully pulled, Max exploded into action. With one incredibly powerful leap, he launched himself through the air, completely intercepting the line of fire and throwing his own body directly between Daniel and the attacker.
Max cried out in pain as the bullet struck him, collapsing heavily onto the frozen ground. But here is the most unbelievable part of this entire story. Max didn't run away. Even with blood spreading rapidly across his shoulder, even while severely injured, the dog incredibly struggled to get back to his feet. He forced his bleeding body to stand in front of Daniel once again, still trying to protect him. The sheer bravery of this bleeding animal caused the attacker to panic, and hearing neighbors coming outside, the gunman turned and fled into the darkness.
Section 4. Holding on for life. The aftermath.
Daniel just drops to his knees in the pitch black, wrapping his shaking hands around his bleeding best friend. He's begging him, "Stay with me. Please, don't leave me." Max just looks up into Daniel's eyes, and according to the source, the dog's tail moved just one last time, and then everything went completely quiet.
And that brings us to the end of our timeline, leaving us with a really heavy, lingering reality. Out there in the dark, the faint sound of ambulance sirens begins to wail, growing louder and louder as they race toward the quiet neighborhood. But as Daniel kneels in the cold grass holding his motionless dog, we're left on the edge of our seats. Is it already too late for the dog who gave absolutely everything to save his owner? And it poses a profound question for all of us. How deep does the unspoken bond between a human and an animal truly go, that they would instinctively trade their life for ours?